Hi, everyone. Joe Yudin here. Great interview today. A great guest. His name is Yoseph Hadad. He's CEO of Together Vouch for Each Other. Hello, Yosef.
Hi, Joe. How are you?
I'm good. Is it Yosef or Yusef?
Yusuf is perfect.
Okay, great. So you're a very interesting person. Um, People tend to see Israel in black and white, and you kind of blur the lines. You're an Israeli Arab from Nazareth, which is a very multicultural city, the largest Israeli Arab city that we have. And you have a very interesting story. But before we dive into your story, of course, you were an IDF soldier in the Golani Brigade, one of our famous infantry brigades. But before we get into that, why don't you tell us a little bit about your family history? How far back did they live in the land of Israel? Did they come from another place? How were you brought up, and what made you volunteer? Because Israeli Arabs are they don't have to do the Arab army, the Israeli army. What made you volunteer to serve in the IDF?
All right, Joe. So basically, if we go back in history, generation to generation, myself, my father, my grandfather, and my great grandfather, all of them were born and raised in this land. Actually, way before Israel got their independence. But we were in a place. My great grandfather born in a place called today Ijesh, Gush Khalav. It's way up north, literally between close to the Israeli Lebanon slash Syrian border. So in a way, my family is literally from here. But if you want to go further and further, I think I've asked my grandfather once, and I told him, I want you to tell me the real roots of our family. And he says, it goes in somewhere from Halab, which is Syria. So I said, all right, so that's a nice history. So basically, that's it. But because of the fact that a lot of our family generation were born here, and then we moved to Haifa, family, and I was born actually in Haifa. I was 3 years at least in Haifa before my parents moved to Nazareth, to the biggest Arabic city here in Israel. So yeah. So for me, that's an amazing history, and the reason why I also uh, talked about Haifa because Haifa has a significant role in my life, which brought me to volunteer to the IDF. And this is actually going to answer your question because when, well, we said that Nazareth is one of the biggest or the biggest Arabic city in Israel, but Haifa is the biggest mixed city in Israel, where you have Jews, Christian, Muslim, and Druze, all of them living together here in Haifa. So the reason why I'm saying that, because when I grew up, well, beside my parents moving to Nazareth, the rest of my family stayed in Haifa. And I would remember myself during the ages of, 12, 13 until 18, until I volunteered to the army. I would remember me going back from school, doing my homework as fast as I can, because otherwise my mom wouldn't let me move from my chair, and then take the bus to Haifa. Back then, it was 25 minutes by bus. Today, it's 25 hours with the traffic. But yeah, so we would go there, and we would play. In the United States, you call it soccer. We call it football. So your football is different, but whatever. So we would play football in Kiryat Eliezer neighborhood, and the players there, they are from all over, the Israeli sectors. We would be Jewish players, Christian players, Muslim players, Druze players, and we were friends, very good friends for many years after. And we would play football, we go together and we drink together and go to the cinema and watch movies together. So for us, the football connected us, but there was one more common thing between all of us, and it's simple: we all were Israelis.
Right.
And this thing I went through my teenage life until the point where I arrived to the age of 18. So at the age of 18, my Druze friend and my Jewish friends, they went to the army because they have to go to the army.
Right.
But us, the Christians and the Muslim, uh, we don't have to. And I asked the question, why? Why? We all Israelis. This is our country as well. So I eventually decided to go and volunteer to the army because this is my country. And there is two things on those specific matter that actually give me the not the idea, but to be honest with you, that I did the right decision. And it was 1 month before I was supposed to start my service in the Golani Brigade, which is one of the best fighter brigades in the IDF. We could see that, unfortunately, yeah, it's a sad, terrible event that happened, but it really made me understand how much my decision was really a good decision, and that's what I should do. I volunteered and started my service at the 15th of November 2003. At the 4th of October 2003, a suicide bomber, a female suicide bomber, came to the Mexican restaurant in Haifa, and she blew up the restaurant, ended up killing 17 civilians. Four of them were Israeli Arabs. At that point, I realized it doesn't really matter if you are Jewish or Arab. If you're an Israeli, you are a target for um, terrorists.
Right. And
And
that leads me to a question. I have a question. And of course, you say you're talking about Israeli Arabs, and Israeli Arabs can be Druze, they can be Christian, they can be Muslim, even Baha'i and Ahmadim. There are other minorities in Israel. You yourself are a Muslim, correct?
No, I'm a Christian.
You're a Christian. Okay, so in the Christian Arab world in Israel, there has been a big push by certain figures, certain religious figures, and also political figures that you should do national service. But we haven't seen the same kind of push amongst the Muslim Arabs. Would you agree with that? And if so, why is that?
Okay, I have to be honest with you, this is one of the most misleading conceptions about the Muslim community.
Oh, okay. So,
I'm really happy to say that.
Okay.
Hear me out, okay?
Sure.
So, yearly, okay, there is 18,000 volunteers in the national service, not in the IDF, in the national service. For those who don't know really what is the national service, it's where you have the possibility. That's actually our motto in our organization. It's the possibility to serve your country and at the same time serve your community, because you can do it in the police department, you can do it in the hospitals, in fire departments and MADA, which is the ambulance and stuff like that.
You can do it in schools. You can do it helping Holocaust survivors. My daughter actually decided to do, she's Jewish, the national, and we're not religious. So she decided to do her national service, not in the IDF, because she was afraid she'd become a secretary and have a meaningless 2-year experience. So she decided to do national service, and she works with Holocaust survivors in Haifa. I don't live far from you. And yes, so lots of Israelis have that option, and the non-Jewish and Druze Israelis do have an option to volunteer for national service. So
to actually continue the statistics, so yearly in the Israeli society you have 18,000 volunteers. Now get this, okay? 5,000 of those volunteers coming from the Arab sector. So if I would ask you, which Arab sector has more percentage of volunteering? The obvious one would be the Christian and the Druze, and then you would say the Bedouin and then the Muslims. That's the obvious, right?
Right.
Well, I've actually, I want to tell you something. I did something amazing. I posted this question on my Facebook page.
Okay.
And I said, who do you think the leading sector in the Israeli Arab society in terms of volunteering to the national service? Everybody said the Christian or the Druze community, left behind the Muslim community in last place. In fact, more than 51% of those who volunteer for the national service, they are coming from the Muslim
From
community.
the Muslim community. Oh, well, that's great to hear.
Yeah,
However, Yosef,
I know what's gonna come. I know.
the
But
vast
then,
majority of Arabs in Israel are Muslim.
okay, so I've you know, I anticipated these questions because I've been asked that a lot, and I would say you're right. Obviously, the majority of the Israeli Arab society are coming from the Muslim community.
Mhm.
But when people hear that more than 50% of those who already volunteer to the national service are coming from the Muslim community, they would say that's still shocking because for them they thought that they didn't even care or that they didn't even serve or they serve in a really low amount. But we must understand that we are in a process right now. The
Right.
Israeli Arab society, especially the young generation, we are in huge process. And this process is continuing. By the way, we are actually seeing it through our organization. Uh, our organization is an Israeli Arab organization that the whole idea of it, or the biggest target of it, is to bring the Arab society closer to the Israeli society. And we are
Mhm.
targeting us, the young generation. And when I say the young generation, I'm targeting and I'm saying those who were born in the mid 80s and up. And we are seeing something, what I call it in Hebrew, or we can call it in English, sort of a Israelization. This is like that's a keyword that we are using. We've seen more and more young Arab Israelis uh, because of the social medias, because of this advanced world that we have today, going towards Israelization. And this is something quite fascinating because we are seeing that as well in the army, because the percentage of the Muslim Christian community who are volunteering to the IDF is way by thousands of percent way higher than when I decided to volunteer to the IDF. Actually, when I volunteered, I was among the few. I was maybe back then as well as a commander. I became a commander. I was among a few Arab commanders. Today, you have a lot of Bedouin commanders, Christian commanders. We have Muslim commanders who are part of it as Bedouin, and obviously the Druze, where you have more higher and higher percentage of even Jewish people, Jewish people to serve in the army. So we are seeing something amazing. And in terms of the national service, I mean, we have a goal in our organization as well to keep going up this percentage of volunteering. So this is good. We
Yeah,
see.
absolutely. I mean, I've been saying this for decades. I came to live here in 1990, and I've been saying it for decades that until the Israeli Arab population starts to do national service, not necessarily the IDF, but until
Yeah,
they start doing the national service, because so I also live 10 minutes from Nazareth. I live in Kibbutz Megiddo. Our offices are actually in the Tanachim, even closer to Nazareth, and uh, we
make
I
sure you come to Knafi and Shawarma.
always always and I go to the University of Haifa. I did my tour guide license there. I did my master's degree there. I'm doing my PhD there now, and more than half of the people, the staff and students at the University of Haifa, are Arabs from across the board of Israeli society, and we integrate. And of course, up here in the north, in the Galilee and the Jezreel Valley, more than half the population are Arabs, and we work together and we eat together, and it's really not just in the mixed cities like Haifa and Akko, but all over northern Israel. Everyone's getting along just fine and going to school together. But it's a little bit too late. There's still a large portion of the Arab community that doesn't speak Hebrew well, and the Jews can't be bothered to learn Arabic, which I think is terrible. I myself, can barely speak Hebrew, but that's a whole nother issue. But the why don't you think that we both on I don't want to say sides, because you're right, we're all Israelis, and 20% of the Israeli population is Arabic, but shouldn't we try to have more earlier integration into society, maybe using sports like soccer that you were talking about?
I'll tell you what, for me, as a person with agenda and a mission, there's no such thing as too late. Okay, that's something that we should really understand here. There's no
Right.
such thing as too late. It's too late when you don't really try. It's too late when you decide to look over and say, okay, that's the situation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for 72 years, we've been saying that or doing otherwise, and you know what? It's time to try something else. At least I want to go down uh, uh, as a person, at least in my opinion, in my way of thinking of myself, and in a way that I would say, you know what? I look back at my life. I hope years and years, many years and years after, and I would say I did, or at least I tried. And you know, I see a lot of things that people don't really right now see, and I see it because I understand both of the society. I can see the point of view of a Jewish person, and I can see the point of view of an Arab person. It doesn't matter any sector and come from where. If it's a religious Jewish Orthodox, or a traditional Jewish person, or even someone who don't really believe in God and he is Jewish though, or in Muslim, Christian, Bedouin, or Druze. I can manage to see as well their point of view. And you know what? You said something really amazing before that. You said, yeah, I think the Israeli Arab should, at least, or it should be easy to volunteer to the national service. And you didn't talk about the IDF. And this is exactly what we're doing as well, or this is part of my agenda. I myself was an IDF soldier. I was actually wounded and injured badly during the battle in the Second Lebanon War. So, and if you'd ask me if I would do that again, if I would serve again, for me, as Yoseph Hadad, I would tell you yes, I would go and serve my country again. You know, we can see right now, this is part of the injury after I was in the hospital, and then, and
Can,
then,
before we get into your injury, let's go back and talk a little bit about that. All your friends were playing soccer. They were about to go into the IDF, and you yourself decided to make that leap. What did your parents think? What did your Arab friends think?
Okay, so I'm going to relate to that, but I'm going to finish the point, the important point that we were talking about with the national service. So for
Okay.
me, as an IDF veteran, disabled veteran, as one who served the army in the IDF,
Mm-hmm.
for me, if you would say, so are you in your organization, do you advocate and promote and push everybody to serve in the IDF? I would say no, no. We push and we want to promote everyone to go in the national service. Why? Because we managed to see the two point of view. I know this would be ridiculous to ask my Arab Israeli society to go and volunteer to the army right now. So the solution is to go to the national service, to serve the country and serve your community at the same time without even have the thought of holding a weapon or whatever. And I know also from the part of the Jewish society, but who wants right now to put in the army, from professional reasons as well, another 500,000 or million Israeli arms right now. So I can see those point of views, and I can find the common thing or the reasonable solution and bridge between the gaps. This is the most, I use this a lot, bridge between the gaps.
Right.
So
I agree
I'm
with
trying
you.
to
I agree 100%. Not just from the Arab side, but I also personally believe for the Jewish side that the Israelis, no matter what your ethnic background is, should have the choice to choose what kind of national service they want to do. Of course, we have one of the biggest armies in the world at this point, and we don't need all of the entire population to do the army. So I think it should be an across the board choice for everyone. But I think as an Israeli, everyone should have to do national service if you're an Israeli. Of course, there's the issue if from the Arab perspective that in 48 there were some Arabs left Israel and are now living in the West Bank or Jordan or Syria, and they're the cousins of the Arabs who stayed here. And do they want to confront each other? That's a serious issue. And should Israel force those Arabs to join the army and have to potentially fight against their cousins who are now in another?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The national service is a really good solution for that. But yeah, I mean, also when I talk about finding this middle solution, I also say it from the Jewish point of view as well. In other aspects of this conflict or our daily Israeli life. Going back to your question before, I can tell you that serving in the army and then serving my society as what I'm doing today, um, I couldn't do that really without the full support of my family. It's very, very important, and I'm blessed, and I'm very happy that actually my father and my mother and my siblings supported me. It's quite amazing. My father is a priest, so uh, I can tell you that when at least when I was a kid, I used to go with him to church and watched him, managing the ceremony and everything. And every time we would have talks, and we would talk about, especially when I knew that I'm going to serve in the army. It was around I started to put this idea around this age of 16, 17, and then at the age of 18, I went and did that. And my father, as a priest, he would say that for him, he don't really look at the army as a fighting a machine. He's actually seeing it as um, something that could even bring peace.
Right.
And with this knowledge, I went to the army, and with this knowledge, I actually went and served in the Golani Brigade. And I really also believe in that. Yes, the army, it's a machine that we go to war and we fight and we defend our country. But in the back of my mind, I would remember that this is a way, in actually maybe to achieve even peace. And
Right.
this is huge for me. So this is how I entered the army with full support. Obviously, my mom was more worried. Well, she was right. I mean, at the end, like 2 months before I was supposed to finish my service, I was injured really badly in the Second Lebanon War. So she kind of knew what she was talking about when she said, "No, I don't want you to go to the army. I'm afraid you get injured." And I have to share with you the story. When I understood that I was injured, well, actually, what happened is uh, um, a missile, an anti-tank missile, was shot from Hezbollah ambush that they were in Binjbel. They shot it towards me, and it hit a wall that was very close next to me. From the explosion, I landed on my belly, and I understood that I was injured badly because I felt the blood coming from my face. It was like a wide cut here, and then all over my body. And I swear to you, the first thought that went to my head while I was lying in binge bell, just seconds after I was injured and was hit by an anti-tank missile, I was only thinking about and imagining my mom's face telling me, "I told you not to get injured." This is like boom, huge. That's like the first thought. And then when I turned on my back, I understood that my foot was cut off, and we can see actually right now in the picture, you know, part of how they managed to reattach it, because there's like nails coming out of my foot, which they managed literally to reattach my foot. But during the rehabilitation, all the doctors would say to me, "Yosef, listen, we don't want to get your hopes up. So the higher the expectation, the bigger is the disappointment. But we believe that you can walk, but you're gonna limp." And I'd say I want to go and play football again, and I will do that. And you know what? After a year of rehabilitation, I managed to stand on my foot and walk and play football. And I even run today 10 kilometers per week. And yeah, so I managed to win this another battle, and so yeah, and from there I've decided to go out to experience life, but then I've also decided to dedicate myself to my society, to my country, and that's exactly where I also started, and we started our organization together, Vouch for each other. So yeah, this is part of it, and we can see that part of our activities are in Israel and outside Israel. In Israel, our mission is to bridge between the gaps between Jewish and Arabs, and as I said, to bring the Arab sector to be an integral part of the Israeli society. And outside of Israel, as minorities, as Arab, Muslim, Christian, Druze, and Bedouin minorities, we go out in the world and we speak and talk about Israel. I've been myself in tours in the United States, in Europe, and in South Africa lately. Just before the pandemic, the Corona pandemic started, I've managed to do one last tour in South Africa, where I debated the BDS leader over there. And I can tell you, I'm very, very satisfied to say that in that interview, the debate interview in South Africa TV, uh, I mean, the guy was, with all humble, I say that, yeah, but he was crushed. I've caught him in lies. I've exposed those lies, and I was happy to see after the interview the reaction from the Jewish community in Africa, and also from the African communities, like black communities. They were shocked because for the first time, the Jewish community in South Africa, they said, "Oh my God, we never spoke like this in live TV against the BDS, and especially not against the BDS leader. We'd always defend ourselves, and we would always try to explain why we are okay. This time you went on attack, and it was for them. It gave them a lot of energy and a lot of just to go there and fight and continue to fight. And from outside of the Jewish community, uh, I think this the next story would literally give you the example of how affected was the how the that interview was great for the Israeli Hasbara, because after the interview, members of the EFF political party in South Africa, just to give you a brief about the EFF, they are extremist political party, anti-Israeli. Their chairman called the African Hitler. Okay, they called the one of the leaders in the Jewish community. They called her and they said, "We've just watched the interview, the debate with Yoseph Hadad. We want him to come and to speak to us. There is something that we want to listen to him." The next day, I found myself driving 50 minutes outside of Johannesburg into this poor area where I met there the EFF members of this political party, again, an anti Israeli political party. We sat down together and they start listening to me. At the end of the conversation, one of those members says, "Wow, we really didn't knew that,"
Mhm.
because I showed him the facts and I spoke the truth and I backed those truth with the facts. And he would say, "Man, you've changed my thinking." I had an Israeli flag in my pocket. I took it out and I said, "No, it's the time for you to have a picture with the Israeli flag." The immediate instinct, the reaction, it was, "No, no, 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 no." I said, "No, no, you should do that because now you know the truth." The end result is I am there with this view behind me and poor area, and with those members of the EFF, and they're holding the Israeli flags, and they took a picture with it.
That's
So this is like
fantastic.
crazy.
Yeah, that's really fantastic. I think one of our biggest problems is you said Hasabra. That's like not
Hasbara.
really propaganda, but it's Israeli marketing.
Yeah, it's in a way Hasbara. It's you explain something. The
Right.
And the thing is, this term, Hasbara, it's well going in the United States. When I go and speak in the United States, I've seen Americans using this word, Hasbara tour, Hasbara thing. So it's kind of become sort of an English word, even Hasbara. And I've seen that they use this in official offices here in Israel, government official offices. So Hasbara is sort of explaining tour, and especially explaining tour about Israel, because what we see is, the misleading conceptions about Israel are huge. And as Israeli Arabs, we have more tools, to crush this propaganda, and we do that. And I'm very happy that not just me. There's a lot of activists are joining, and a lot of activists are really participating. That Israeli Arab activists. So I'm happy about that.
So yeah, one of the things that Israel has a problem with is its image abroad. I think our spokespeople don't always just tell the truth and give the background and the history. Instead, they try to apologize for their actions because they've been demonized so much. And I think that's a huge mistake. Israel needs to stand. We have nothing to be ashamed of. We should stand up and tell it as it is and tell the truth and get more people like you out there. I think you personally should run for Knesset. I think that's a problem in Israeli society. I think there's a disconnect between the Arab population of Israel and its politicians, the Knesset members that the Arab people connect. Can you briefly, maybe for a minute, just talk about that?
You've just proved to me that you understand exactly what's going on in the Arab political map here and the situation. We have the joint list. The joint list, it's a mix of political Arab parties that they don't even relate to each other, but they still joined together and made the joint list. Before the last elections, the three last elections, the majority of the Israeli Arab didn't really vote for the joint list. The majority just didn't vote. And the reason that they didn't vote is because, unfortunately, and that's the biggest headline, we don't have alternative. Not an Israeli Arab political party alternative, and not even alternative in terms of a Jewish political party who would literally go and talk to the Israeli Arabs. Not only talk, but even to put an Israeli Arab representative in the first top 10, for instance, in the Likud political party and in Blue and White, and both of those political parties failed doing that. By failing, they went and give the power to the joint list. I have friends who served in the IDF, friends who served in Magav, serving until now in Magav unit.
The military police.
Yes. And they would say to me, Yosef, what? To which political party you want me to vote? The Likud, they're not talking to us. The Blue and White, they're not talking to us. Even the Labour political party, what they did, they literally demolished any turn to the Israeli Arab. Meretz, they are the biggest disappointment, because Meretz, they took their only Arab representative, who actually have receipts on electoral votes, and went and shoved him and pushed him out of the first 10. I mean, are you kidding me? So what happened? They literally gave the power to the joint list, and the joint list went and did a fantastic and amazing campaign. For the first time, they actually did a campaign targeting the Israeli Arabs, not even talking about the Palestinians. Usually, they would talk about that Israel is an occupied land, and they would talk about that Israel is this and that, and only targeting the Palestinian conflict. But this time, they went and only targeted the Israeli Arab situation. And that brought them to go up to 15 seats. I promise you, and I am saying it with full confidence. I know this. Once we have alternative in other ways, doesn't matter. I believe eventually, and we are working on that. I will not lie to you. I've seen that. We are working on an Israeli Arab political party, alternative political party, and we would see that the 15 seats that they got they would have got less and less if there were other alternatives, for
Well,
sure.
that's really good to hear because some of the politicians in that party have a history of heaping praise on our enemies, and
Sure. We have Hiba Yazbek. She praised terrorists from Samir Kuntal to Dalal Mughrabi. So we knew that. We know that.
right. So here you have the main Israeli Arab party who they praised the terrorist who murdered a baby, and you know that doesn't allow a, a party like Blue and White, who got the mandate to form a government, whose head on the party list is a formal chief of staff of the army, to form a government with that party. It just the Israeli electorate wouldn't stand for it. So yes, they're definitely the Arab Israelis need to form another party. So before we go, we have about 4 minutes left. Why don't you wrap it up by telling us more about Vouch for Each Other?
Okay. So Vouch for Each Other is an Israeli Arab organization. The board is assembled by men and women from all sectors, Muslim, Christian, Druze, Bedouin, and Jewish community, because we wanted to show everyone that we can be together, because the common thing between us is being Israelis. We do amazing activities in terms of bridging between the gaps. Uh, Actually, some of it just happened recently during the Holocaust Memorial Day here in Israel. We have something called Zikaron Basalon, which is a memory in your living room. And we brought this for the first time last year in the Arab Society, where we brought an eyewitness to come and speak about the Holocaust in front of a Christian, Muslim, and Druze community. And it was such an emotional event for us. This year, because of the pandemic, we did it by Zoom, and it was crazy. We opened it for just one session because of the demand. The next day we opened three more sessions of the Karomba Salon, of memory in the living room in the Arab society. This is a small thing that we do. We do an amazing activities in terms of volunteering, good we try to do good things, good activities for our society in the hospitals. Part of the activity that we did just recently because of the pandemic is we went as volunteers. We took volunteers from our organization. We made packages for our police officers and the paramedics, and we just in the north and also in the center we went and gave them this package just to say thank you. We support a lot of activities between Jewish and Arabs, and as well we go and we speak about Israel outside in the world. We can just say that in the world. This organization, for me, symbols the real Israeli society, the real Israeli society where we all proud to be part of Israel. This is our country, and this is our society, and we see that for us to leave, eventually we will, go into the other life, but we want to leave something good for the young generation, for our children to come. This is the way to do it together. By the way, you see this the sign just behind me, together. And when we vouch for each other, this is a sentence taken from Chazal, "Arivim ze leze, kol Israel arivim ze leze." We didn't want it to take it to a religious place. We wanted to take it to the society place where all Israelis vouch for each other. So that's the most amazing thing, and I really hope and I believe in our cause. And I've seen this. We started with few, now we are a few hundreds, and we keep growing and growing and growing. And we're gonna keep growing because I know that the Israeli society, they want this. The majority of the Jewish and the Arab Israeli society want to be together.
Oh, absolutely. And so for anyone listening to this, when you come back to Israel, we can set up a meeting with Yoseph Hadad, or you can maybe even contribute to vouch for each other, or check it out in real time while you are here. Yoseph Hadad, thank you. Everyone, please check him out on Facebook. Subscribe to Yosef's YouTube channel, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'll have more interviews as the coronavirus pandemic lockdown continues. And Yosef, again, thanks for coming. I mean, real eye-opening stuff. Really, thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Thanks a lot. Thanks.
You're welcome. Shout out to Jonathan Rose, who's behind the scenes, our Wendy Perrin trusted travel expert for 2020. And we will talk to you again soon. Take care.